the Order of the Knights of the Silver Hand, the martial branch of the Church of Light. Its ranks filled with holy warriors, empowered by the light, brandishing both warhammers and holy flame. It was here, in the burning steppes, that the paladins earned their fearsome reputation when they rallied and inspired the Alliance forces against Doomhammer's horde and crushed them. To this day, you can always look into the thick of the fighting, and there you will find paladins, smiting their foes and protecting their allies. And in doing so, we honor our great heritage and legacy. From the beginning, paladins have always been frontline units, fighting amongst the foot soldiers of the Alliance, plying their holy craft in brutal fashion. Because of their propensity to serve from the front, they have often been called battle or melee healers. To honor this tradition, Blizzard bestowed a special spell upon the Holy Paladin, a spell that was as cool as it was divisive. And that spell is called Avenging Crusader, or, affectionately, Melee Wings. Holy Paladins have always maintained some damaging abilities they could weave in between healing spells. Some of these abilities, notably Consecrate, Crusader Strike, and our Spender, Shield of the Righteous, require you to be within melee range. So while many healers can sit at range and prefer to do so, optimal HPAL play often requires you to be in melee range. And since you're already sitting there in the thick of things, go ahead and bring in Avenging Crusader. Now, for 15 seconds, your Judgment and Crusader Strike abilities heal your entire party, up to 5 players, for 420% of the damage done. A number that goes up and down and all around and will continue to change. So now you heal through doing damage. And this playstyle can be further enhanced with other talents like Golden Path and or Veneration that cause your other damaging abilities to also provide healing to your group. And a cherry on top, passive abilities like Rising Sunlight give you a beautiful bursty holy shock every time you activate Avenging Crusader. The War Within brings some more changes to the Avenging Crusader talent. It no longer costs holy power, where it used to cost 3. So now you can go hot as soon as it's off cooldown. You also now get 2 charges of Crusader Strike during Avenging Crusader so that you can do more healing. A controversial change that was made very recently was the removal of a talent called Holy Infusion. The concern is that the removal of this extra holy power generation will force more hard casting into the spec. You'll notice while Avenging Crusader is active, most of my healing is instacast. That is to say, it is immediate and it is not interruptible, which is outstanding. Has a very nice flow to it. The concern is if you don't develop the holy power like you used to, there are going to be times when you're going to have to stop in the middle of a big group of stuff and just hard cast a spell. People that are fan of Melee Wings greatly prefer the instacast generators and spenders that come with Avenging Crusader. They don't really like the feel of a lot of hard casting, especially when you have to be in melee range of large packs of mobs, which the spec requires you to be. Just from trying it out without the Holy Infusion talent, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I never really feel starved for holy power. I think the main concern here is the Crusader Strike damage / healing, but that number is going to change even more and go up and down. And again, it just consistently goes up and down and all around. So I don't know where it'll end up, but I think to me that's the more concerning part of this Holy Infusion loss. The extra holy power, yes, you can feel it a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. and most certainly doesn't ruin the spec considering some of the changes and additions they've added to it. So that's the gist of Avenging Crusader or Melee Wings. You hit your wings and your damage is now healing, and you just wreck shop. It's thematic, it looks awesome, and most importantly, it's lots of fun. So what's the problem? Well, here comes the great healer divide. Like anything, it's a matter of perspective. And let's just take a moment to address some of the feedback that I get very specifically from the WoW community. Anytime I criticize the story of retail or the design of retail or any problem that I have with retail, the number one response you'll get from that as a content creator is, if you don't like it, go play Classic. I don't know what we do with people that are that stupid. I just ignore them because stupid people will beat you with their ignorance and they have no problem just putting it out there. I think it's pretty obvious to most people that things are complex, right? I can love the ease of finding groups, the accessibility of retail, the transmogs in retail that I've worked very hard to achieve, including my Mage Tower appearances. I very much like most of the class design decisions in retail. I think there's a little too much homogenization between classes, but a lot of people feel that way. But I much prefer retail play to what I find to be very boring play in Classic. There's just a ton of things I love about retail, and I consistently say that retail is my preferred mode, and I think WoW, even for all its faults, is without peer as an MMO. I don't think there's anything else out that even comes close to how awesome it is. That said, I'm not a big fan of the story, and I'm not a big fan of the setting, because I'm kind of already sick of all the girl boss shit, but let's be honest, it's just getting started. So I tease, I make jokes about it, I complain about it from time to time, and I point out that old World of Warcraft that I fell in love with, because that's what I came up on. My first World of Warcraft game was humans versus orcs. For most of you, you're quite able to entertain the concept that multiple things can be true and things are complex, right? Your feelings about games, your feelings in relationships sometimes. Things you like, things you don't like. That's just the nature of things. And the reason I bring that up is because when it comes to melee wings and healing, and really the concept of converting DPS to HPS, it's complex. And there's a lot of truth to both sides. So the pros I pointed out, where it's very fun, it feels very thematic, it's easy to heal that way, right? You just basically DPS and healing happens. And sometimes the idea is that if we made healing more DPS-like, because so many people like to DPS, maybe more people would convert to healers and then you'd get more healers. It's a double-edged sword, though. So let's discuss some of the problems with that concept. And we'll just start from the top. The lore argument, where it's very loreful for paladins to be battle healers. I've played with paladins since you recruited them from the Altar of Kings in the RTS. At no point has there ever been a case where I saw paladins healing by doing damage. They actually had to stop and heal or stop and res allied players. That was an actual thing. They had to stop and heal, and then they got back to doing damage. People say that it's loreful for them to do that. I don't see a lot of justifications, or I don't know any place in the lore that I've seen where a paladin did a ton of healing by hitting people with his hammer. They do hit people with their hammers, but they also do cast healing abilities. Obviously, this point matters the least because it doesn't really matter what lore says. They've made this gameplay to be fun and add it to the play style in retail. But for the people out there saying that you have to have melee wings because it's loreful for how paladins heal, I have never seen that. I'm not saying they couldn't or that they shouldn't, but more importantly, mechanically, many healers, including yours truly, are wildly uncomfortable with converting DPS to HPS. The first issue really is that I don't want to DPS. I like having some damaging abilities to help contribute or finish off an opponent, but if all I'm doing is DPSing to heal, then healing loses its unique experience. And healing in the World of Warcraft is a very unique experience. And if you've never tried it, let me challenge you to, because it's so different and so rewarding. When you go into a dungeon, you can tell whether you have a good tank, or a bad tank very quickly. And the ability of that tank can completely change the feel and the fun of that dungeon. It's the same with DPS. You can tell when you've got great DPS and subpar DPS because the game feels different. Let me tell you something. You go ask the tanks and the DPS players and they'll tell you there's a huge difference between a good healer and a great healer, and most certainly a bad one. It feels different. And sure, I've bricked my keys and messed things up, but I've also had those moments where I'm bopping at the right time or I'm giving someone a freedom to get them out of some shit, and I come through and I am just healing my ass off, and at the end of the run, they're like, dude, great healing. One of the best healers I've played with. Outstanding job. That run was awesome because of how well you played. It is a very, very unique experience, and I got to tell you, I love the Trinity. These MMOs that always come out and say, like, we're going to get rid of the Trinity. Why would you do that? The Trinity is awesome. Tanks get to be the tanks, DPS get to be the DPS and blow shit up, and the healers get to heal. And that combination and coming together as a team and everybody doing their role and their part to achieve victory is an awesome feeling. I don't think there's anything like it in gaming. Whether I agree with the story or not, the feeling of playing as a team and everybody using all their abilities to overcome, it is awesome. I might argue that we've gotten to the point where there's too many abilities going off and I can't even see the goddamn screen, but that's for another video. But it's awesome experience. And the Holy Trinity is what I consider to be a very holy Trinity. I love it. And I love being the healer. People say you're just filling health bars. If that's all you're doing as a healer, you're just a bad healer. There's a lot that healers do. We contribute to damage. We throw out buffs and freedoms and all types of stuff to not only just win, but win in style. And I think Holy Paladins with their bops and their lay on hands, they just have some ways to come through in the clutch. And I love it. And I don't want you to turn that into me just being DPS light. I like healing to be healing. I like that there needs to be healing to achieve things. I don't think there should only need to be healing. There should be other things that are required from other roles as well. And there are. But I play a healer to heal. And I want that to be my primary job. And I love to contribute some damage. And I love utility. But I like to heal. And I'm glad that there needs to be healers. And if I wanted to play DPS, I would do that. Healing is a very unique and rewarding role. And when you turn it into just hitting things like a DPS, it removes some of the magic of that awesome role, in my opinion. Staying with the concept of uniqueness, I'm not opposed to having a class or two that heal through this kind of DPS mechanic, but the number of healers that heal by doing damage is ever increasing. It was Disc. Now we have Melee Wings, Fist Weavers, and coming soon in the War Within, Druids. That's right. Now Druids will also be able to heal by doing damage. And so we have this concerning pattern where more and more healing is coming from doing DPS. And this is a troubling trend for those like me who, again, enjoy the uniqueness of actually healing. And it seems like they're creating more and more of these classes that just heal through damage. So it's not even unique now when there's 4 or 5 classes that heal that way. It seems like a way to supplement healers or make it easier for DPS to become healers so that you can get more healers because they consistently make healing a miserable role. And the reality is what you need to do is you need to reduce self-sustain and the number of defensives in the game. Also, you can make mechanics that actually aren't just the whole group getting exploded. Maybe a DPS gets disarmed for 15 or 20 seconds. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen outside of just damage every time. So that one person's not just sweating the entire instance while everybody else just does what they please. That's the issue. Which, to be fair, let's be fair, they are addressing that stuff, or at least attempting to. We'll see how it all plays out. But that's been the problem with healing. The solution is not, in my opinion, just to turn it into DPSing. I think you will lose as many healers as you'll gain from that. A couple of other considerations to think about when we talk about melee healers, going back to the idea that perspective greatly influences your opinion, well, if you mostly just PvP, then everything is scripted in PvP. And the mobs are beyond stupid. They just hit whoever has aggro. And so one guy goes in there, throws his shield or slams or whatever, and then all the mobs in the dungeon attack the tankiest player who barely needs heals. I mean, I know they're addressing tank self-sustain, but I mean, they say they are. We'll see where that lands. But PvE mobs just attack the tank, and everyone else just gathers around and AoEs the shit out of everything. There's, of course, a few exceptions, but that's Mythic Plus in a nutshell. But in PvP, where the men roam, good players know the value of the healer. And they won't target the tankiest guy on the team. They will actually seek to blow the healer straight to hell. So I always tell you, in PvE, you're a tank or a healer. In PvP, you're a tank and a healer. Because all that aggro's coming right at your healing ass. And so you're a melee healer, right? And you're going to run out into the middle of that battleground to get your melee wings on. And guess what? Every enemy player and their healer has to die add-on is going to see that you're now in range with a giant medic symbol over your head. What do you think happens next? I'll tell you. About 3 Chaos Bolts, 2 Convokes, a Mortal Strike, and a Root Beam all come down on your ass. And that majestic melee healer dream that feels so good against the PvE mobs gets shattered on the rocks of reality. It can be especially bad in solo shuffle and arena, where you consistently have to put yourself in bad positioning to get in melee range to heal, making you not only susceptible to getting blown up, but also making it easy to set up a CC chain on you. And you don't get any CC reduction or anything being in melee wings. The other problem that comes with turning healing into simply DPSing, especially in PvP, is that it's miserable to play against. There is so much outrage when fist weaving is popular, because what happens is the damage and healing done by the fist weaver, coupled with the massive amount of defensive, self-sustain, and self-healing of all the other DPS classes now. I mean, every class has healing now, it seems like. It makes it so, basically, it's just fighting 3 DPS. And they just run around in a pack of 3 and smash. The response to this being popular is that all the flavor of the month rerollers in PvP, of which there's many, and it's very easy to level up a new class in retail, so it doesn't take any time at all. Everybody else rerolls a fist weaver, because why play a true healing class when I can just mindlessly punch and fill people's bars? And so the matches turn into a massive pile of Mongo that's just miserable to play against. And on top of that, because of all the rerollers, you're forced to play into this comp over and over and over. So you're consistently just playing into triple DPS, that feels like, and it's just not fun. Now, yes, you can overcome it, especially if you're very good at PvP. You do it a lot, right? You're in comms, you're in some 3v3 group. But if you're not in comms and you're just in solo shuffle at 1800, it's miserable. It's absolutely miserable. And it's so bad. It actually reduces the amount of people playing, because a lot of people will just say, screw this. This isn't even fun to play against. I'll wait until they nerf it. And that's exactly what happens. Some participation is actually curbed because it's so bad to play against. Now, don't get me wrong. The fist weavers are in there having a ball. It's a blast for them. But the community hates it for obvious reasons. And so there lies the great healer divide on converting DPS to HPS. The advocates claim it to be a unique and loreful experience that greatly enhances healer gameplay, while the detractors feel that it reduces the unique experience of healing into just being a DPS light, while also making classes who don't heal that way less valuable. Further, the playstyle has serious problems and concerns when having to perform outside of AoE bot bashing. What happens in the end, we'll all have to wait and see. But make no mistake, Blizzard is intentionally increasing the number of classes who heal this way. For For now, all we can do is welcome our disciplined druid brothers and sisters into the melee healer fold while we wait for more tuning. For as we all know, tanks, healers, and morons alike, tuning is ultimately what chooses what we all get to play. And the Blizzard gods of balance are ever fickle and chaotic. And there's a lot more tuning to come. Good luck, everybody. Oklahoma out.